Everyone. My name is Brianna. I go by Bree. This is my applied assignment for society, inclusion, and disability. There we go. Uh, So for my pre-work for my topic, I chose to look into the perspective of family members of an autistic middle schooler. I chose this because I have firsthand experience with how education does not always seem to include children with autism. I work for an ABA therapy center and we work within the schools. So I currently shadow one of our clients at a private school, and I've noticed the lack of inclusion when it comes to his education and how he absorbs learning and things of that nature and how they react to him. It's very disheartening, and I just wanted to know if it happened with all individuals with autism or if there would be a difference between private and public schooling. Um, I do believe that in order to include individuals with autism an educational setting, I believe that there should be a kind of basic rundown course within the coursework of teaching, uh, because not only will it benefit the teacher in knowing how to go about teaching a child with autism, if they understood the basic rundown of like ABA therapy, it ABA benefits everyone. It can benefit neurotypical children, it can benefit animals. It's pretty much a skill that just helps you be able to understand like why this behavior is happening and how to go about approaching said behavior. I just feel like if people understood that aspect, then teachers in general, um, it would be more of an inclusive setting. For my interview, I interviewed Suzanne and Jonathan Scott. They are the mom and stepdad of a middle schooler with autism. They have firsthand experience on their son's inclusion in an educational study. He was diagnosed when he was 11. They got a late diagnosis due to um, doctors only really not really listening to her when she kept saying that she wanted to get him tested. Uh, but they finally got a diagnosis when he was 11. Um, for some background knowledge, Suzanne Scott is an old coworker of my mom's. Her and her husband are very close with my parents, and I've met their son on multiple occasions. And he's super sweet. He's super smart, very technology, very advanced in technology for a child, more advanced than I am, and I'm 25. Um, I focus mainly on their perspective on how the school handled his diagnosis and how they handle his education and things of that aspect. Course materials. I really enjoyed the article People with Invisible Disabilities Fight for Understanding and the journal article Introduction to the Special Issue Family Support of Persons with Disabilities Across the Life course. With the first article, it really gave me a better understanding of people with invisible disabilities. I knew that invisible disabilities were a thing. I knew that not everybody had a physical disability. I currently have ADHD and I'm also type 2 diabetic. And I also have anxiety and depression. So a lot of the time, I growing up doing applications, the disability section, depression's on there, diabetes is on there. So I understood that disabilities could be invisible, but I never struggled with it when it came to like jobs and uh, other aspects like that. So the article itself really opened up my mind to how adults with other invisible disabilities are struggling in a real world setting. So I can only imagine how children with those same disabilities are struggling. For the journal article, it helped me realize how much of a hardship it is for family members to be the primary caregivers, because a lot of these families with children with autism or physically disabled uh, individuals really struggle, especially financially. I believe in the article it stated that in, I want to say 2013, it was estimated to be about $470 billion of unpaid, give or take, if those family members were paid. I can only imagine how big of a number it would be now that we're in 2025, but it really just helped show that some of these families, if they aren't fortunate to be of a higher income or have a member working with a higher income to be able for someone to stay back, how much of a struggle it is for them to get through their day to day lives. For my own research, I looked into more of the inclusion for children with ASD diagnosis. There was a toolkit for, uh, there was an article made to basically form a toolkit for the accessibility and inclusion for families with children with ASD in a cultural institution. It's a toolkit that basically helps kind of see if there's any training that's needed for the staff or if there's anything in the building itself that needs to be more accessible. There the different key components. There's a public institution questionnaire that evaluates parking, entrances, staff, and any kind of programs or activities that they have. There's staff surveys and interviews, so that's kind of where they would figure out if there's any training needed for the staff, or basically interviewing the staff and getting their feedback on like their perspectives of the accessibility, the workplace or the cultural institution. There was a user-friendly website review form that kind of checks to see if there's any online information about accessibility and for children with autism and things of that nature for the families to be able to reach. There was an observation of child engagement form, which kind of just documented how the children interacted with the activities of the institution or the staff, or pretty much how they interacted with the environment. There was also an event feedback form for the families to see about how the families felt about the institution. And I feel like if more places, schools, churches, pretty much anywhere that families feel kind of discouraged when it comes to their children and their children's disability, I feel like it would help children flourish. It would help the institution itself become more accessible and more inclusive to not only the neurotypical non-disabled children or peers. It would help give families more of a encouraging feeling to know that, hey, this school takes it seriously. The second article was about autism inclusion. It was kind of just a basic rundown and guide on how to make children with autism feel more included in a school setting, their everyday lives. It gave tips on how parents can help advocate and voice uh, for their children's inclusion. It even gave tips for workplace inclusion for adults with ASD. So I feel like it was definitely beneficial to read. Uh, for my evidence, I included my interview with Mr. and Mrs. Scott regarding their son, who's a middle schooler with ASD. For new learning for my inclusion, through my interview with the Scots, I learned that they struggled the most with the public school system. They faced hardships when it came to the school itself, especially as elementary school. I found out then that schools only do cognitive delays, which just refers to a slower pace of mental development that affects how individuals learn, think, solve problems. Um, Experiencing the way private schools handle children with autism. With private schools, they don't have IEPs, they don't have autism specific classrooms. They kind of just throw them into a regular classroom with neurotypical individuals. So, experiencing how private schools handle inclusion to hearing how the public schools also handle it, it kind of shocked me how similar both of them are because one's private and one's public. Um, so it was just kind of mind-boggling that just inclusion in general across the board for both isn't really thought of, especially for children with invisible disabilities. Like they expect them to be exactly like their neurotypical peers, but not every single child, neurotypical or not, disabled or not, they're all different. They're all uniquely themselves. For equity, the elementary school that Miss Scott's son attended had a difficult time recognizing his diagnosis when he was diagnosed at 11. She did state that she had to fight for them to give him an individual educational program, IEP for short, just to ensure that his education was being thought of just like his peers' education was. The course and my opportunity to shadow in school helped me realize that individuals with disabilities are only treated equally to a certain extent. They're only treated equally if they are behaving the way their peers are behaving, especially in the school that I shadow. Um, my client is not behaving the way his peers are behaving. The teacher is automatically putting her foot down. She's approaching subjects and problems with a way that you can't really approach with children with autism. She just kind of feeds into the behavior when you're not really supposed to do that. For access, with my interview with the Scots, it informed me that their son has more access to different items in middle school that will help him long term. They did state that he now has a kind of theatrical class. It's kind of like theater. She said, but it's definitely helping him socially, which is something that is really big for them because he's not a very social. He's very socially withdrawn. Uh, so it's him being able to access that is helping him flourish in not only his education but also in his real life. It's helping him be able to have those opportunities to build socially. I learned that access for disabled individuals, at least in the places around my hometown, are kind of more for show, just to kind of say, "Hey, everybody's welcome," but it's bare minimum. It's almost like it's a second thought for them to include disabled individuals. I want to learn why it's so hard for school systems to recognize children who have a disability. It doesn't matter if it's autism, ADHD, dyslexia. I just want to know why make it so much harder for them to get their education when they're already trying the best that they can, when they're already doing what they feel is like their best. I will take what I have learned from this course to help me boost in advocating for the disabled individuals in my hometown. Um, I believe everyone deserves to live their lives without worrying about whether they're included because they have a disability. I feel like it's only right that people are able to live their lives without having to worry about if they can go to this place or that place. I do want to know if the city I live in has any hidden treasures, like places that are doing right by disabled individuals, by doing more than the bare minimum to make sure that everyone's included. I have yet to find any. So for my questions, what is your biggest takeaway in this course? Did you expect to learn what you learned. After going through the course, have you noticed anything that could be done more efficiently to include disables and to give them that accessibility and inclusion? And how do you plan on advocating for disabled individuals? Um, um, Thank you for watching, and I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of their semester. Have a beautiful holiday. I know Christmas is coming up. But yeah, thanks for watching.